What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Hello, hello. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Tuesday Nights Live. Um, I was I'm in a group with some other mental performance coaches, and we were asking the question. I asked the question, "What's a good title for this conversation?" And we came up with this title, "Real Talk with Coach Ashley Carter," with Coach Carter, and I like it because I do. My goal is to be real, to give you the real, to give you the ins and outs of what I feel is important for you to know, what questions you might have, and just looking forward to sharing with you all today. So, I did get some questions, so super excited about that. And it's not too late. If there are any other questions that come up for you, make sure that you drop them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer, or the comments, and I'm happy to answer them for you. So, let's see. I do want to jump in with the first question. So a parent asks the question about, I'm going to go in this order: work, life, or athlete life balance, and how do you know, or what does it look like per division? And so I thought that was a really great question, and I kind of wanted to jump in. And I would say, as most coaches will lead with this answer, that every division is different. We have community college, NAIA, Division two, Division one, Division three, and I think if you just kind of understand the different divisions, that might help with kind of how you understand that sort of priority of softball over not priority of softball. So let's start with NAIA. So NAIA, I would say, four-year university. Some people think that it's not as competitive as Division One or NCAA schools, but I would say that that's a complete myth. I think as I have coached in both NAIA and in Division Two, I would say they're very well parallel together. What I will say about Division or NAIA, what I would say about NAIA is that they spend a lot of time ensuring that their athletes get out in 4 years. That is one of their main goals, is that their athletes get out in 4 years. So they'll have probably a really great balance of being a student and being an athlete. They also prioritize, in most cases, internships, so that their athletes do, when they graduate, go on to a job, a career. And so I worked at a school called Menlo College in California, and it was a business school, a psychology school as well. And a lot of our athletes went on to work at some of the top accounting firms and some of the top medical firms because they had to do an internship in the summertime of their junior year, or they had to do internships during our fall season of their senior year. So, what will be the cons of an AIA school would be they're usually pretty expensive. In most cases, they're private schools. And so, what usually happens is, for instance, the school in California that I was at cost $60,000 a year. And so, that's a shock for a lot of people. But again, at the end, I would say about 40%, 50% of our athletes did go on to have jobs when they graduated, and good paying jobs. So, for what they got, I think it was very, very well worth it. And we had a really competitive um, program or competitive conference. So, I think also when I look at schools like Southern Oregon University, who has had continuous championship seasons and had All Americans within their program. That's just another example of a school that kind of does both, and it allows their athletes to go on and play or get degrees and then get jobs at the end. I would say Division three, the way Division three is set up, it's a very high academic school. So what that usually means is they definitely put more emphasis on academics, and it shows in their fall seasons and sometimes in their regular seasons. What I mean by that is, in the fall, a lot of our athletes, Division One, Division Two, usually have a longer clock period to do practices and have scrimmages. Whereas with Division Three, I want to say it's something like 13 or 14 days, or it's something very small, maybe 27. We have like 40, 49. Can't get the right numbers, but we have a I would say a longer time frame to practice in the fall, whereas Division three only has literally a small window. So they barely get to do anything. They probably usually have one weekend where they can do scrimmages, and that's it. Whereas as Division One and Division Two, they could probably scrimmage maybe 3 to 4 times. Thanks to everybody who's jumping on. I appreciate it. Hey Brian, hey Deanna, Stacy, and Jared, Mandy, Heather. I appreciate y'all. Jennifer, I'm gonna try to call y'all out that when y'all show up. I really appreciate it. So I would say that's something about Division Three. When let's go to Division Two, I say Division Two, like I said, very parallel to NAIA school, but I think I would say pretty high caliber athlete, probably have more emphasis on being an athlete, but I think they still sort of mirror the athlete and the student perspective. So they usually have I think what the slogan is something like student first, athlete second. They strive for that, but I would say depending on what school you go to, they definitely want to compete. They have a lot of the same rules as Division One, except for they have earlier dates for things. So they usually get to talk to athletes sooner than Division One. And that's usually to try to give them an opportunity to get those athletes before Division One schools get them. So it gives them a little bit of that leeway. But I would say academically, they are probably balanced between athlete and student. I will also say, in general, these are like every college is a business, and every college makes business decisions based on what they get financially from things like sports. So they don't invest the money into the sport for your athlete to how do I say this in the most politically correct way? They don't invest the money for your athlete just to get a degree and not help benefit the athletic program. So be aware of that. And I think sometimes having a degree does help the athletic program. So again, depending on what level they're at, that kind of matters. Now let's get to Division One. I would say with Division One, it really depends on the school, and it really depends on the coach's philosophy around the school, and then it really also depends on the expectations of that particular coach in that particular school from the administration. So again, really big business at the Division One level. They're usually trying to at least supplement income in some ways, or supplement revenue in some ways, depending on what school you're at. For instance, at the University of Washington, the women's softball team at one point was the money generating sport at that school, where most schools it's like football. So they were one of the money generating schools. So you would imagine the University of Washington softball team has a higher level of demand on being really good at athletics. Now I'll say at Hampton, what I really love about Hampton, what I also really love about our coaching staff is our coach believes in our athletes having a college experience. We also are a very high academic STEM school. So we have athletes who do study nursing, do studying teaching, do study psychology, engineering, veterinarian, marine biology. These are the majors that our athletes actually have, mechanical engineering. And so when you think about that pre-med, biochemistry, chemistry. So when you think about that, understand that our students have to have some focus on academics. And so what we do at the Hampton University is we require our athletes to have mandatory study hall. We have certain times of the day that we try to schedule around for practice. We also have tutoring for our athletes as well. When we travel, we'll also have tutors for traveling as well. So we're now creating an environment where we are focusing on the student first. And then I said, what I say about our coaching staff again, our head coach is really great, is that she also believes in our athletes having, like I said, a human side to them. So like homecoming week, we took some time off so they can enjoy homecoming week, right? We had midterms and finals. We recognize that our athletes are definitely critical overthinkers, so we give them time to focus in on their education in those times. So let's cut practice short, or let's have a morning practice so we can get them done with the rest of the day. In the fall, we have no practice on the weekends to help ensure that they can have a balance of if they work, or if they want to go see family, or if they want to go to a game, they get to do that. Now, that's not the case for every school, so let's be clear that some of the schools do not do those sort of things. They don't allow their athletes to, I would say, have freedom to be able to do all those things at the sacrifice or at the sake of the sport, but they will allow them to do it. So I would say that. So that question hopefully was answered. I think the biggest thing you should know is that our athletes do get excused from school. They can't get excused from school for practice, but they can get excused from school for games. So if we travel, we have games, they get to be excused, and they usually get a letter from our academic support teams that tells the professors at the beginning of the year, hey, I'm a softball athlete, I will be missing this amount of school. Can I make these assignments up either before or after? We come back. So that's that sort of scenario there. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer the question for the person who sent me that question. Hey Lucy, hey Katrina, thanks for joining. And so let's now. Another question I got was, um, I'm trying to remember because I can't pull it up right now, but the question was walk on. So let's talk about this concept of walk ons. And is it something that we do? Is it something that's allowed? Is it something that we look for? And it's something should your athlete try to push for being a walk on? And so that's a very hard question to answer for everybody, but I'll try to give you the perspective of a coach, especially at the Division I level. And I think it'll be the same for other levels as well. So in general, you should know that you could probably imagine getting into a D3 school, community college school, NAIA school, even Division II school, and even Division I. But I would say for the most part, you can imagine getting into the lower level division schools, and smaller Division I schools up until their senior year. What I will say is when it comes to like higher mid-major D1s and D2s, and even some Division II schools, what tends to happen is they usually recruit in advance. So, for instance, with our particular program, we might be, and ours is an anomaly. So I'll say this as well, but in general, I was at the University of Washington, we were recruiting for the 2025 class when I was there in 2022, right? So that was sort of the process that we were in back then. We were looking for those athletes in their sophomore and freshman year. So that's sort of that high level D1. That's kind of where they were looking, right? And so the only way that they would consider walk-ons is if something changed in the last, after the season ended, players had a mass exodus, and that's literally what happened to the University of Washington. They had a mass exodus from the University of Washington, and then what happens is, okay, hey, now we have space, we need to fill a spot. Okay, like let's go after some of these athletes, and of course they'll go to the transfer portal first in most cases at that level. They're looking for athletes that have a little bit more skill in or experience in that level. So that usually kind of washes away the walk-ons, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. I would say when it comes to schools like ours, where we just had a coaching change, there's probably a little bit more flexibility in the beginning of the year around still trying to figure out what our needs are. So when you get to our school, we're still finishing up we finished our 2025s. We're now looking at our 2026s, and we have a pretty good list of 2026s that we're going after. Doesn't mean that we've finalized that yet, but like we're going after them. And we have a pretty good relationship that we're building with those athletes, if that makes sense. So unless I would say we have a mass exodus, something happens after the end of the year where people are unhappy, unsatisfied, they'll most likely want to leave, then we're going to be looking. Or I would say the other scenario of that is something happens in the middle of the season where all of a sudden we're down key positions or key players or numbers, and we need to have these athletes show up. So what I would say to you, the person that asked me this question, is walk-ons are not impossible, but if you can build a relationship with that coach before you get there, let them know, hey, coach, I'm already committed. I'm already admitted into your school. I get this much scholarship money. I'm coming no matter what. I would love to come try out for your program. You'll have probably a really good chance to show up and maybe have a chance to at least get a tryout for a walk-on. And then there's some programs where for instance, for us, we also had a walk-on after our camp in the fall. We couldn't provide them any financial stabilities or resources, so we ended up asking them to be a preferred walk-on. So what that means is we commit to them, they commit to us, but they're not getting any financial assistance, and so they're considered a walk-on. So that would be another way that sort of happens. Not impossible, but it's just something to be aware of. it'd be nice if you've kind of already built some sort of relationship with that coach, or at least as soon as you get on campus, like go find the coach and ask them, hey, when's your tryout? Because we do hold tryouts. I would say most schools will do that anyway. And if nothing else, they might be a manager at first, get around the team, and then there may be some opportunities for them to then show up and work with the team at least, and maybe build into the opportunity to be a player on the team. So, not impossible sort of scenarios really playing into, but just the psychology of recruiting would say that we're usually looking ahead of the game and not behind the game, if that makes sense. So, Lucy has a really great question. Um, but I have one more from the other person. I'm trying to think of, let me write, I wrote it down. Thanks for locking in with me, y'all. Appreciate it. This is cool. I like doing this stuff. When, uh, ah, so the question was about travel ball coaches and how involved they should be in the recruiting process, and that's a really really good question. And I hope that you have a program where that coach has a little bit of credibility. And if you don't, I would suggest as you are in this process, if you are ever looking to switch teams, maybe get some information on their experience and their connections to coaches. And I think that's a really good question in general that we should really be asking everybody in our process of like what teams we choose, right? And it's not a selfish question. Like we really are playing travel ball to get exposure. We have to remember that. And so what comes with that is a little bit of that give and take and a little bit of that what's the expectation or what's your plan for how you plan to help my daughter be seen and showcased? That is a question that you should ask, and I don't care what travel ball coaches say. You have to know that answer if you're going to decide for that team. So the other thing I'll say about that is, as coaches, I'm doing this for parents because I also believe in you guys being aware, but really I'm trying to help you help your athlete who then goes and talks to coaches, right? So that's why I do this here, this real talk. But the reality is that coaches don't like to talk to parents. We're just, for whatever reason, we want their athletes to show self advocacy, and we want the athletes to show that they care more than their parents care. And so that might really be the case, but sometimes parents sort of step in for their athletes, and we're really trying to teach them independence because when they get to our school, we also then need them to be responsible enough to communicate with us on their own when they're not feeling the best there, when they feel like they're not being treated the best, when they feel like they want more playing time, have more questions. Like we want them to be able to flex that muscle. And so when parents get involved, that sort of shows some coaches that that athlete might not be quite ready for this particular process. So understand that. So what does that do mean for the travel ball coaches? It means that the travel ball coaches are someone that we actually can talk to. We can actually share our real interest about your athlete. We can also tell the coach what things we want them to work on, when the camps are, when we want them to show up. So it's really important that we have that communication with that travel ball coach. So that travel ball coach should 100% be involved in this process. Hey, Coach Amanda, thanks for showing up. So I would say that's super important in this process, that travel ball coach. Now, that doesn't mean that you become absent behind the scenes. Make sure you're very active in this process, because I think what happens sometimes is some travel ball coaches are seeking high level exposure for the sake of their own gratification or the team's reputation being higher. So make sure that you're asking, the questions like, hey, what coaches are interested in my daughter? And then also tell them, like, my daughter doesn't necessarily want to or need to go to Division 1. They really want to play at whatever level is giving them an opportunity where they can get this degree, because that's the main goal, right? So be very involved, but let the coach be the communication person, because that's the person that us as coaches prefer to talk to. So I hope that answered that question for you as well. And so I had another question. When my daughter goes to camps or showcases, there seems to be a lot of interest in my kid from the coaches, but when she emails them, she never hears back from them, even after a few emails that she sends. We are not sure what we are doing wrong. Kind of discouraged. Yeah, Lucy, thanks for asking that question. So I would ask her at the end of the camps. I'm imagining she probably goes and speaks to them and all that. But I would say if you take pictures at the end of the camp, I think putting those pictures in the email and making sure that she thanks them for the camp and saying like, hey, I really enjoyed the camp, but then putting her face on the email and their picture kind of reminds the coach about that athlete. And I will say this, I think what's really important is you have to understand that coaches receive, like I told you guys maybe 3 lives ago, that I have still in my inbox to this day 400 emails from players that I have not been able to answer. And it's not that I'm ignoring them, it's literally that I have 400 emails in my inbox that I can't answer them in this exact moment. So I would say be diligent in that. Maybe find what other avenues that coach is on. So Twitter. I know Lucy, your daughter's in my program, and so I would love to talk to her offline about this because I think I can really give her some insight. But I think in general, where are they active and where can I tag them? Where can I send them direct messages as well to help them sort of get their attention? I think that's really important. And I would find the way to ask the right questions because I think that's also important. They probably like her because she's such a great spirited person and a great athlete, but there might be something that they're not looking for in that particular year or class. And so I think that would also be something that you might want to know because they're just not might not be a space for her even though they like her, right? So we can talk about that a little bit. I'll talk to her about that when we connect this week. All right, so Jared asks, what age do players coaches start or should start communicating to each other? You mentioned they know about sophomores, but are they communicating before that time? Yeah, good question. Good question. So this is where the travel ball coaches really come into play, because you're correct. As a Division I school, I'm unable to speak to an athlete um, uh, until September 1st of their junior year. So yes, if they're a sophomore, technically I can't speak to them unless they come to my camp on my campus, or if I'm working a showcase camp where they are at and I'm working the camp, not the tournament, the camp. So that's why those showcases are so important, and that's why those camps at the school is so important because that's really how they get on their radar. We have athletes that come to our camps that are in 8th grade. We start that process at 8th grade and above, and we do that because we want to get those athletes on our radar. So at the University of Washington, what did we do? 8th grade, we have our camps. We have all these different camps at 8th grade. We're gonna put them into our camp, invite them to our camp through their travel ball coach, tell the travel ball coach, get them to the camp. And then there you go, they get there. And so that's how we get to interact with them, get to know what they're about. That's how they get on our radar and start following. So I put a poll in the group probably a month ago and I asked the question, when does the recruiting process start? And I put 7th and 8th grade. And reality is 7th and 8th grade is really when that process starts. It might be just a decision that we're making to say, hey, I think I really want to go after this sport at a high level. So, what does that mean for the trajectory of my next 6 years, right? And so, excuse me, making that decision at that point is really important. So, that would be the answer to that. So, thank you for asking that question. And I'm super excited that you all jumped on, asked questions. I do this every Tuesday. And I also want to do a quick plug that on Sunday, I'll be doing a actual Zoom live talking about how to develop confidence in your female athletes so that they stand out to college coaches and get recruited. I would also say we're also talking in there about how to bounce back and overcome when things don't necessarily go as well. How do we communicate and things like that? So on Sunday, I will be having that live. I will put the link in the comments after I end this live today. So that way, if anyone's interested, they can sign up for it, but you have to register for it. You'll get the link. It'll be on Sunday. It'll be Sunday, 7:30 Eastern Time, 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. I will double check that and put it in the chat for you guys. But yeah, hope that you guys can join. And if not, I'll see you again next Tuesday. And if you have any questions, always direct message me. I will be happy to answer them for you on the next live. So thank you guys so much. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, y'all. Have a good one.